And Mr. Mayor, we are live.
All right, thank you. Hello, today is the 23rd day of November in the year 2020. I'm Mayor Stephen Densmore, and this is a meeting of the Gulf Manor Village Council. We're meeting remotely by the authority granted us by the Ohio legislature, given concerns about the COVID-19 pandemic. If you will, stand as you're able and join me in getting our meeting started in the usual way with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, before we get into our regular business, I want to acknowledge that our former service manager, Dave Hubbard, who retired 2 years ago after 31 years of service to the village, died this week following complications with COVID-19. He is survived by his wife and 2 sons, as well as 5 grandchildren, 6 siblings, and many nieces and nephews. Please join me in keeping his family in your thoughts and prayers. His obituary and funeral arrangements are online. I've linked to them in my report, and I can speak to them very briefly here. Visitation is this Friday from 4 to 7, Friday the 27th. I'm not going to pronounce the funeral home correctly. My best guess is it's the My Hope Rosenecker Funeral Home at 10211 Plainfield Road. And then the interment will be Saturday at 10 a.m. at Rest Haven Memorial Park. And with that, I believe I'm ready for a call for quorum.
Mr. Butcher.
Here.
Ms. Chaney.
Here.
Mr. Knapp. Not present. Mr. Pridnoff.
Present.
Ms. Snyder.
Here.
Mr. Van Horn.
Here.
I'll say that I'm aware that Councilman Knapp is attending a family matter and won't be able to join us this evening. May I have a motion to excuse Mr. Knapp?
Motion to excuse. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the agenda, and are we prepared for a motion to adopt it? Do I have a
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All right, great. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All right. Without objection, I'll take that as unanimous. And is there anyone registered to address the council today?
There is not.
If that changes in the comment section, please make me aware. And our next item here is to approve the minutes. Before we have a motion for that, I realized something at the last minute about my previous mayor's report. I had made some grammar and spelling changes and sent the non-updated one to Andy last week. And so that was the one that you guys had to review. I would make a motion that the minutes be amended to include those spelling and grammar updates in my report. Other than that, do we have oh yeah, sorry.
I'll move it.
And are there any other requests for amendments to the minutes? All right, do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? Say aye. All right.
Aye.
Without objection, I'll take that as unanimous. Do we have, I'm sorry, the view that I have, I don't see Chief Timmers Is he with us yet?
He is not present this evening.
Okay. I will suspend asking for his report then. If he does show up, someone please let me know. And I'll go into my report. This evening for the mayor's report, most of it is a COVID update. There's been a lot of activity there since my previous report. Outside of the COVID situation, there's some information I have about the Brent Spence Bridge and some updates to the website, which are very brief. Concerning the Brent Spence Bridge update, the Kentucky governor's office says that the bridge is projected to be reopened by the 23rd of December this year, following inspections that reportedly show no compromise in the integrity of the bridge. An outline of the repairs that are scheduled has been released to the public, as well as a link for updates on the reopening process. Both of those links are in my report. Concerning updates to the website, a number of months ago, with the high frequency of news updates about COVID, we created a space on the website, on the Golf Manor website, to put all the news we have about the pandemic. You can find a button on the right margin of the front page of the website that says COVID updates, which when clicked takes you to a dedicated COVID news page. Another addition to the website collects all the mayor's reports and messaging in one place, all the mayor's messaging. As you are familiar with and will have more experience with tonight, I often say in my reports that I've linked to information in my report. Now we have a devoted page that makes it easier for folks to find not only the most recent report, but previous reports as well. A button to this devoted page can be found just above the button to the COVID updates on the right margin of the front page of the website. And concerning the COVID updates, several sections of updates, as you may recall from previous updates, the data in this portion of the report is provided by the Hamilton County Emergency Management Homeland Security Agency. I'm going to be talking some about hospital capacity. I'll be talking about some of the recent orders from stay-at-home orders and curfew orders, and some of the assistance programs that are available for struggling residents, businesses, and schools. So hopefully about 10 minutes here at the most. So COVID-19 is now the fourth leading cause of death in Ohio, third nationally. Once again, this past Friday, the state of Ohio reported its highest single day increase of COVID-19 cases, reporting 8,808 new cases in one day. In my previous report, I noted the highest single day increase was that previous Friday, which was 5,008 new cases. The current November number of ICU COVID-19 patients has increased fivefold over that of the October number in Hamilton County. Adult medical surgical bed utilization in Hamilton County has increased to 90% capacity. In Hamilton County, adult critical care bed utilization has increased to 91% capacity. To deal with the significant strain on bed availability and staffing, many hospitals are preparing to activate surge operations protocol. This protocol reduces elective inpatient surgeries and procedures by 50%, transfers patient appointments to telehealth, and eliminates ICU transfers from other hospitals without higher level approval. UC Medical Center activated this protocol last week. And as I said, many hospitals are expected to be, will be following this, doing this as well in the coming weeks. Franklin County became the first Ohio county to reach level 4. That's the purple public emergency status. Franklin County contains the city of Columbus, of course, our capital, and is the most populous county in Ohio. Level 3 counties that are about to transition to level 4 public emergency status are notified a week before they're officially designated. This gives county officials and local officials some time to prepare residents for the new protocols that go into place. There's a level 4 fact sheet that I've linked to in my report that can help you understand the science behind the switch from level 3 to level 4. And that's, as I said, is available on our website. This past Thursday, it was announced that half of Ohio's 88 counties have concluded their inspections of area businesses and have found that 90% of businesses are in compliance with the statewide mask mandate. The statewide temporary, the state, grammar error here. The statewide temporary authority allowing government meetings to be conducted virtually is set to expire 12/1/2020. We've discussed this at our previous council meeting. Advocacy for an extension is widespread and includes our county commissioners and the mayor and council of Gulf Manor. Hamilton County issued a public health advisory this past Thursday that's linked in my report, the text of that. The director of the Ohio Department of Health issued a stay-at-home order Friday night, this past Friday night. The text of that is also in my report. And Governor DeWine issued a 21-day statewide 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew, which started, I believe, last Thursday. I'm going to read through the exceptions to the curfew that the governor has listed for the record, and also note that the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office has announced that they will enforce the governor's curfew orders. The specifications of the curfew order are that individuals within the state must stay at a place of residence during the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. except for obtaining necessary food, medical care, or social services, or providing care for others. This order doesn't apply to those that are homeless. Individuals whose residences are unsafe or become unsafe, such as victims of domestic violence, are encouraged to leave their homes and stay at a safe alternative location. The order does not apply to religious observances and First Amendment protected speech, including activity by the media. The order permits travel into or out of the state and permits travel required by law enforcement or court order, including to transport children according to a custody agreement or to obtain fuel. Individuals are permitted to leave a place of residence during the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. for the following essential activities. Engaging in, this is largely just stated in a different way, what we've already said, engaging in activities essential to their health and safety, or the health and safety of those in their household, or people who are unable to or should not leave their homes, including pets. Activities, activities can include but are not limited to seeking emergency services, obtaining medical supplies or medication, or visiting a healthcare professional, including hospitals, emergency departments, urgent care clinics, and pharmacies. To obtain necessary services or supplies for themselves and their family or members of their household who are unable or should not leave their home, to deliver those services or supplies to others. Examples of those include, but are not limited to, obtaining groceries and food. Food and beverages may be obtained only by consumption off premises, those such means as delivery, drive-through, curbside pickup, and carryout. To obtain necessary social services, you can leave your home. To go to work, including volunteer work. To take care of or transport a family member, friend, or pet in their household or another household, to perform or obtain government services. Concerning the upcoming holidays, the Ohio Department of Health issued a guide to celebrating safely during the holidays, which is also available for download. It's like a 15-page PDF that lists all the different holidays that are known to be going on during the next 21 days, and some ideas about celebrating those safely. They also issued a guide for college students returning home during the holidays. So of course, a lot of folks are coming home, and there's some recommendations about making that as safe as possible, both in terms of what you do before you come home, in terms of quarantining, and what you do while you're home at the residence that you're not usually at during the rest of the year, visiting family. Concerning vaccine availability and distribution, a lot of information dropped about this this past Friday. The Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency for Hamilton County announced this past Wednesday, I believe, that they have developed a location to safely secure vaccine in cold storage. They're ahead of schedule with this installation of their ultra cold freezers to hold the vaccine for Hamilton County as soon as it's available. The idea with this is that there's certain holding spaces that are kept secure, safe from outside forces, and also safe in terms of being kept cold. And then from this location, it can be shipped out to other locations as needed for distribution. They're saying that they'll be done with the installation of the freezers by the end of this month. This past Thursday, Governor DeWine's office announced plans to designate certain sites to be the first recipients of the emergency doses of vaccine when those are available. The UC Medical Center is the site designated for Hamilton County. There's speculated to be only about 35,000 doses that will be available locally when this first wave of vaccine is made available, which won't be enough for distribution to the general public. It will just be used on an emergency basis. So it'll be at UC Medical Center, and in emergency situations, that's where people will be able to get vaccinated. The second wave of the vaccine availability for non-emergency use is still expected to be available more widely to the general public sometime in December, following FDA and CDC approval, which is expected in December. Pfizer and BioNTech submitted emergency use authorization to the FDA this past Friday for their COVID-19 vaccine. Pfizer announced that their trial data indicates that their vaccine is 95% effective in preventing COVID. It requires 2 shots separated by several weeks. So it's not a one and done thing. You get a shot, and then in a couple of weeks you come back and you get another shot. And they're reporting that with that, it's 95% effective. They submitted these results this past Friday and are waiting final approval from the FDA to begin manufacturing for the public. And as I said, they had already submitted for that emergency use, so they can get stuff out, like I was describing earlier, for use in emergencies before it's going to the public. Johnson & Johnson announced plans to seek emergency authorization as well. They'll be doing that in February for their vaccine, which requires just 1 shot. AstraZeneca has data results through Oxford University that they say will be published in late December. So they're not at a point yet for requesting the emergency authorization or the regular. This past Wednesday, the FDA authorized the first prescription at-home test for COVID-19 for individuals over the age of 14. The test provides results in 30 minutes. It's expected to cost somewhere less than $50 and be available to the public by the spring of 2021. Assistance programs available for struggling residents, businesses, and schools. The Ohio Department of Job and Family Services has issued a warning about basically some folks are taking advantage of people looking for assistance, unemployment assistance, and they've produced a package of information warning people and giving some guidance on how to find assistance. A reminder that the applications are open for the latest CARES Act funding packages from the state. Those applications opened on November 2nd, and the website is businesshelp.ohio.gov. It's linked on our website and in this report. The link for schools to apply for CARES Act funding. So if you're not aware, this is available for private schools and public schools through the school reimbursement program. The link is in my report here. The link for individuals to apply for CARES Act funding for assistance with rent, mortgage, and utilities is also in my report, which is on the website. It has a link to the application as well as instructions on where to send that application and the supporting documents. We partnered last year with a nonprofit, and I put the link on here to that nonprofit, which helps. The link has been available on our website since last year for community members in need looking for resources. It's a website that has a bunch of resources all together where the application forms are and all that. And as I said, that's in my report. Some final words. I said this earlier in the year when we first started seeing the impact of the pandemic, but I feel it should be repeated, that we all have different resources at our disposal, different styles, and perhaps different ways in which we access personal strength to endure challenges. I know most are already doing this, but for the record, want to encourage you to be mindful of people's fear and to share what you can of your personal strength to help others feel safe. People do some of the worst things when they're scared, and often even just a smile from a neighbor or even a stranger can calm tensions. We're at our best when we're helping each other, so keep the faith and be strong for each other. Thanks for all you do to keep our community welcoming and safe. Please take care of yourself and each other, and please feel free to contact me with any ideas or questions. And that is the end of my report. Are there any questions? And if not, I will ask for the village administrator's report. Mr. Hirth.
The unmute is the key here. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And speaking of thanks, I would like to convey to council my personal thanks that to all of our employees after what has been a challenging 2-week period dealing with COVID exposure in the administration building, which included testing and quarantine and lots of stress for folks. I also want to make a special thanks to Amberley Village for their service department providing some mutual aid to our service department. Last week, as our crew was out also for COVID testing because of their proximity to the fire department, we had an expired deer, a large one, on Lasanaville Avenue that needed to be taken care of, and everybody was indisposed at that time. And they very graciously took care of that. So I sent our thanks and best wishes to Amberley Village for assisting us with that. To give you an update, which I tried to throughout the issue, 3 employees were actually diagnosed as positive with COVID, which resulted in closing the municipal building. We're happy to report today that everyone is recovering, and today we did return to normal operations, whatever normal is right now. The building was sanitized by a vendor who specializes specifically in doing COVID mitigation. And we appreciate council's cooperation with us in using the COVID funding in investments in technology that allowed Andy and I in particular to operate remotely from our homes to keep the level of service for our residents high. So we didn't miss a beat. There's just a lot of stuff we need to get done that we weren't able to attend to for the last 2 weeks. So again, I thank the employees and appreciate your patience throughout this whole process. I want to remind everybody that all in-person meetings in the municipal building have been canceled and will be conducted by Zoom at least until after December 10th, which is the conclusion of the governor's orders for the curfew. That seems to be prudent, and we want to do as much as we can to keep people from being exposed. As a result, several projects have been delayed because of our 2-week COVID break, and they'll be addressed during the December break, which would include implementation of Ordinance 2019-10. There was a meeting that was scheduled last week that we had to delay till next week, and then also the completion of the security system. We'll have the vendors back in the building next week after the holiday to get that finished up. This evening, you'll be talking appropriations with Mr. Lanzer. One of the things that I would like to make council aware of, and for Ms. Cheney, who's been on council for the last round of community block grant funding, in 2018, 19, and 20, there was funding that was available to us to enhance our building code and property maintenance enforcement. And with that money, we were able to use Detective Matthews of the police department. The goal was 20 hours a week on doing work with the community in terms of building code enforcement and property maintenance types of things. She has done such a good job that for us to be able to take this level to the next program, and we've seen the fruits of her labor based on improvements in the village and the fact that we see property values going up because of improvements that are being made. We would like to take this program now to the next level and have a permanent part-time person filling this position starting in 2021. We have budgeted that in this appropriations budget, and we are requesting in the next round of CDBG funding that in 2021 we've requested $15,000 to supplement that program, in addition to $15,000 for 2022. And then finally in 2023, we are anticipating that our finances will be stable enough in 2023 that we would be able to fund that program without CDBG funding. And at that point, we would recommend that we reinitiate a program that was used several years ago to allow property owners, resident property owners, to do improvements on their property with grants up to a certain amount, which we will need to work through at this point. So just to recap, we're requesting $15,000 in 2021, an additional $15,000 in 2022. Those funds will go towards our property maintenance and code enforcement program. And then finally in 2023, we're recommending that those funds, another $15,000, be divided into grants available for residents to apply for reimbursement on improvements of their homes. One of the things that we want to accomplish with this part-time position is not only identifying issues with properties, but to also offer solutions to our residents, particularly those who may need direction or assistance in trying to identify how to get the problems taken care of. So this new position would also be responsible for managing that program, along with the compliance back to the county for getting reimbursement for the CDBG funds, and then also identifying agencies such as people working cooperatively to help people have a plan for fixing whatever they need to have fixed. We're working with a housing inventory of 1930s, 40s, and 50s era homes that if you walk around the village, you see sidewalk problems on the private residential property, in addition to retaining walls, gutters, roof. structures, those kinds of things. We need to step up pointing those things out to encourage people to be in compliance with our codes, but we also want to be able to offer some opportunities for them to be able to solve those problems. I'm going to share with you, if you'll take a look at your screen and if this works right, on the website today, let's see, it looks like you can all see this. There are 3 links that I added. CDBG funding application for 2021, a separate application for 2022, and a separate application for 2023 detailing our recommended approach. And there's nothing that you need to do this evening. I offer that because these are public records, and all of you, I would encourage to take a look at this and give me any feedback that you have. This program previously required a public hearing to be held. And this era of COVID, what the county has requested that we do is to post a public comment period for 5 days on our website, making these documents available. Since we're bumping up to the holiday here on Thursday, my intent is to get this information out on the website by Wednesday, and then we'll open up our public comment period to last through December 4th, which is a week from this coming Friday. And yes, it is December already. Before I move on, any questions about that process or that program at this point?
I have I think a couple questions. It sounds like this position is focused mainly on residential properties, or is there going to be some involvement with commercial issues also?
So a couple of things are going to happen. We're working on a job description, and
Mr. Hirth, you're muted and your video went out.
sorry about that. I had to sneeze. I saved you from that. So a couple things are happening. We are completing a job description that I will have ready for the executive committee to review at their first meeting in January. Hopefully we will have an approved job description at that point, and then we will take it and hang on, gonna happen. Hey guys, sorry, it's allergy season. Hopefully then at the finance meeting, at the second meeting in January, we will get approval from the finance committee to fund the position with the appropriations that are in this budget that you'll see this evening. And then we will post the position after that for candidates to apply for the position. We'll look at both internal and external people to fill the job. But to answer your question specifically, Mr. Van Harn, this would be for residential and commercial properties. I would expect all of the things that we're doing separately in the realm of building code and property maintenance enforcement to be consolidated into this one position. Now, what could happen long term is once the executive committee tackles and we come up with a solution for landlord relations and licensing, if we decide to go in that direction, that program may be able to assist us in developing revenue that would turn this position into a full-time job at some point. Thinking about that right now is putting the cart before the horse. We need to tread into the water with this part-time position and see how effective we can make it.
That actually, thank you, Mr. Hirth. That actually answered my second question, which was about rental properties being in that zone between residential and commercial, I guess. And then if the trend continues with our properties, one thing we've experienced is my family is simply a struggling middle class where financing is not available in certain realms for things that we need to do. If we made less, it might be. So as property values increase over the next 5 years, I'm projecting that. And then possibly we move out of some of the poverty identity that we have as a village. Some of that's going to become less available to people naturally. So has there been any thought to how that to a long-term approach to that, or thought on this position?
I think that's something that we should consider, but it's not in the current mix of things that we've been talking about. Um, Moving to this permanent part-time position is the next step of what we've been doing with Detective Matthews. And again, as Chief Campbell would tell you, she has embraced this program with as much gusto and dedication as anyone has approached a project. And she will still be involved in this in terms of her ability to assist us with legal issues that need to be addressed, and maybe more specifically saying enforcement issues. But I don't know. That's probably something we need to consider in the mix. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
The last little piece is just because of, I've mentioned it at a couple of our meetings a long time ago, is the opportunity to try to influence a little bit of control, appropriate control over the transition of properties. Like we've gone through a wave the last 5 years, I'd say. Again, I'm being anecdotal, of a lot of properties being sold quickly, turned into rentals. And, now we're kind of moving into what seems to be, because property values are going up, where people are actually flipping them to new owners, which in a way is a good thing. But still, I think we should keep an eye on having a relationship with either a nonprofit or, maybe not Habitat for Humanity, but something like that, where we can try to think about having an associate nonprofit that can buy properties with the intention of fixing them up well and creating residents, not rental properties. That's something I think is important with the mix of our thing. So it's like I'm trying to plant the seed. I know there's a lot to think about there, but since I have experience in that, I think it's really something I'd like to at least have considered or in discussion.
So when you review these applications, you'll see that there's reference made to the TAP study and also the We Thrive study. So we are actively following the kinds of things that they recommended to us in terms of making this an attractive neighborhood as a so-called bedroom community. I think those are next level kinds of things that we need to continue to project out and include in our continued implementation of this program. So baby steps, as we always do things, and then do them well, and then be able to build on that. So I appreciate those comments. We should talk further.
Yeah, I like what I hear and things. I'm just trying to see around the corners a little bit. And when you perk the ears, sometimes opportunities come, or at least when you hear them, you'll know, oh, that's something we've talked about. That's all I'm trying to do. But I'm trying to think about that for 5 years down from now, 5 years away from now, or something like that. So anyway, thank you. It sounds good. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Hurth. Any more to your report?
Yes, a couple things. Want to make you aware that we posted an article on the website about enhancements to the recycling program. Starting January 4th, butter tubs and yogurt cups and similar types of refuse will be able to be recycled going forward. You'll be getting more information from Rumpke about that over the next couple of weeks, so that rolls out on January 4th. Other thing that I would make you aware of is I posted a link of a finalized proposed calendar of council meetings for 2021. One of the things that we've noted is that there will be a December meeting next year, because that will be the beginning of a new council. There will be 4 council members that'll be up for election in November of next year, and the new council will be sworn in at that first December meeting next year. Let's see. Last thing I would talk a little bit about is year-end closes coming up. So Mr. Lanzer and Ms. Gideon are both working towards getting all the information that we need together to be able to do all the reporting to the state of Ohio. And then, Mr. Lanzer, do you have any kind of an update on leaf collection at this point?
Yeah, as with everything last week, You may have been aware that leaf collection was delayed for the majority of last week. It resumed again Friday and continued into Friday evening. And then you may have seen the service guys out Saturday morning around the village as well. They've reported to me that they are back on track. Of course, there's still leaves out there, but as far as the schedule goes, the streets that were scheduled to be picked up prior to today have all been collected. So
Great, thank you.
hopefully
for
we
that.
can stay on track.
Perfect. And Mr. Mayor, that is the end of my report for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hurth. Thank you, Mr. Lanzer. Any questions?
I might be jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm just curious, is the Saturday hours overtime? And let me qualify that. I know I heard in the finance committee about a $50,000 reimbursement thing that may come in. And if we had to work overtime with leaf collection due to the COVID stuff, is that something that's tied to it? That may come up later, but since it came up now, I thought I'd ask.
I'm not sure if typically if the guys worked 40 hours in a week, anything over and above the 40 hours worked would be overtime. But because they were already on COVID time, I'm not sure that the hours worked would be time and a half or not. That's a question better for Anna, but I can get an answer for you of whether or not that was overtime.
Well, it's also sometimes weekend hours are automatically. I mean, I don't know the arrangement exactly with employees, so but I'm just curious. That's all. So
Overtime is actually based on hours worked over 40 hours in a week. You may recall back in the legislation that was passed earlier this year, there were two pools of money that were required by the federal government for us to establish. One was an 80-hour pool of money to cover folks who were absent because of COVID infection, quarantining, a family member who needed to be cared for. And then there was another pool of money that was established at 66% of the normal rate for anything that took place after that initial 80 hours. So I believe only one employee has encroached, a part-time person, into that 66% reimbursement. Everyone else, myself, Mr. Lanzer, Ms. Gideon, we've all used some COVID funding. There was a quarantine period on a holiday that we couldn't leave our houses, and then those who were actually diagnosed with COVID were paid out of that pool of money. So the idea was not to harm people in their benefits. The service department also took advantage of that COVID money that was available also. So that will all be reimbursed back to us. The overtime may be chargeable to that. We'll have to look a little bit more deeply into that. Similarly with some of the activities that took place with the police department during the pandemic.
okay, thank you.
Sure. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Hurth. Mr. Lanzer, do we have a fiscal report this evening?
Yeah, several things. First, I'll begin with the October 2020 financial packet, if you bear with me 1 minute. All right, for the month of October, the village had an adjusted bank balance of $2.8 million. Of this, approximately 2.6 rests in the village's primary checking account, with the remaining balance residing in the village's two law enforcement supplemental funds. As mentioned in previous financial reports, the majority of the $2.6 million found in the village's primary checking account is dedicated to several road and street funds that can only be used for that purpose. However, in October, the village had 95 payments clear in the amount of $285,000. The top 5 payment payees for the month of October were payroll, which was $114,000, Welsh Excavating in the amount of $32,000, Rumpke Container in the amount of $18,000, the Ohio Police and Fire Pension in the amount of $17,000, and River City Furniture in the amount of $9,100. If you've been following along in previous reports, when I do the top 5, typically the first, the largest source of payment is typically payroll, but it's typically in the amount of $75,000 to $85,000 a month. As you can tell, $114,000 is more, exponentially more than that. And the reason being is October was one of those months where there was actually 3 pay periods in the month. So that explains that. The River City Furniture is a bit unusual, and that was for a COVID purchase for new furniture for the building. That purchase was made to provide furniture for the building that's easier to maintain and easier to clean, given the COVID environment that we're in now. As for receipts, the village received 28 payments that totaled $325,000 for the month. The largest sources of revenue over this period include a payment from Hamilton County totaling $128,000 and a payment of $69,000 from the state of Ohio. Both payments are related to CARES Act pass-through revenues to the village. As for the general fund, revenue for the month was $133,000. This amount is $7,700 more than what the village generated over the same period from last year. The majority of the increase relates to income tax receipts by the village for the month of October, and the increase there was $5,300. So total income tax receipts for the year through October fiscal year 20 are $713,000. This figure is nearly 5% or $33,000 more than what the village was able to generate over the same period last year. As for appropriations, the village spent $171,000 during October fiscal year 20. This is a slight decrease from what the village spent during October fiscal year 19 in the amount of $6,000. Total village general fund spend for the year remains below that from the previous year in the amount of $78,000, actually almost $79,000. So we as an administration continue to anticipate this decline in village spend through the end of the year. And again, it's the result of a strategic reorganization of village personnel and the implementation of strict purchasing and spending controls among village departments in an effort to protect village resources as we respond to COVID-19 on the impact of the local economy. Any questions about the October financial report? All right. The other big item we have this evening is 2021 appropriations. I'll begin with the carryover balance to start the year. So the 2021 appropriations budget for the village was built upon the forecasted carryover balances of $575,000 for the general fund, $69,000 for the police levy, and $900,000 for the street levy. These balances were estimated based upon revised revenue and appropriation forecasts conducted earlier in the year when our partnering organizations such as RETA and the Hamilton County Auditor believed that village revenues would be detrimentally impacted as a result of their coordinated responses due to COVID-19. So for the purpose of this budget here, the appropriations budget, those revenues for fiscal year 20 have not been adjusted. However, we in the village administration forecast that village revenues will exceed and have exceeded the fiscal year 20 forecasts, and as a result will positively impact the carryover balances across several funds to begin the year in fiscal year 21. So future budget documents will reflect the more accurate revenue figures, and as a result, carryover figures will also be positively impacted on future budget documents beginning January 1st, 2021. Any questions about that?
Yeah,
right.
is there,
Go ahead.
assuming all this happens, which I trust it will, you're good at what you do. What is generally the handling of carryover funds? They just sit in those accounts and we adjust the next year, or is there a best practice or a requirement? I'm just curious. I don't know much about that.
So
It's
carryover is the reserve, and the best
Okay.
practice is to have at least 6 months expenses in reserve. Our appropriations for this year will be, and I'll get to it here shortly, but will be in the range of $2 million. So the best practice goal would be to have at least $1 million sitting in reserve.
And we're still building that reserve on that goal. So this would basically be a
It puts us
continuation
closer to it. That's
of
correct.
what we've been trying to do for 2 or 3 years, whatever it is. So, okay, thank you.
So as for the revenues, several for fiscal year 21, several village revenue sources will be increased across several funds. These updates were made in order to more accurately reflect revenue figures received by the village over the last 2 years. So for the general fund, village administration forecasts income tax receipts to be in the range of $785,000 next year. Furthermore, village administration forecasts property tax receipts to be in the range of $650,000. Similar increases in property tax receipts were made for both the police levy and the street levy. And for the general fund, fiscal year 21 total revenues estimated to be $2,016,238, an increase of 7% when compared to fiscal year 20. Again, it's important to note that the updated revenue figures for fiscal year 20 have not been reflected in the appropriation budget documents yet. Currently, village income tax revenues exceed fiscal year 20 budgeted figure in the amount of approximately $42,000. And that was at the time I wrote this, and it's gone up since then. And general fund property tax receipts exceed the fiscal year 20 budgeted figure in the amount of nearly $63,000. So village administration believes fiscal year 21 revenues will closely resemble the actual revenues from this year, and for that matter, last year as well. Furthermore, future budget documents will reflect the actual fiscal year 20 revenue figures beginning after the first of the year, fiscal year 2021. All right.
Mr. Lamb, I have a question concerning the COVID money or the CARES Act, whatever it is, the assistance that we've been getting from the federal and the state to assist us with these expenses, and as well as the lack of funds coming in. I believe initially we were told to plan for revenues to be about 20% lower than they normally are. I'm curious whether that has just not happened, or if it's been that the assistance that we've received from the state and federal has offset it enough that we are where we are.
So the answer is
with respect.
Yeah, so we have not experienced the reduction in income tax receipts or property taxes as was forecasted by Rita in the Hamilton County audit. Okay, we are on track to match, if not exceed, the income tax receipts from last year, which was $789,000. We've exceeded forecasted property tax in the amount of $63,000. So we are on track to match, if not exceed, revenue from last year when there was no COVID. The revenues that came in through CARES Act pass-throughs aren't included in this budget, and they aren't included in general fund funding in fiscal year 20 because we created their own funds, which were the numbers are the fund numbers. I can't recall them off the top of my head, but that money is separated now, and it will not be a part of the budget moving forward because we have to reimburse the state and the county any left residual funding that's not spent through the end of this year. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you. I think it did. Mr. Van Harn, did you have?
Yeah,
one as well?
you're actually on the same track I was thinking, but I also think the impact of COVID is still going to be felt into next year on what we receive later. Maybe not for property taxes, but income tax and other things, right? But we still got to keep an eye on the residual
We will
impact.
still keep an eye on it. We absolutely will.
Yeah,
I think we have enough data now to more accurately predict Rita's ability to collect income tax. I think we also have enough data now to know that what other communities like the city of Cincinnati experienced and like what Hamilton County experienced aren't necessarily going to impact the village of Gulf Manor for several reasons. For instance, the county's heavily dependent on sales tax. Gulf Manor doesn't collect sales tax. That's a revenue source that's not even an option to us. And when they're examining revenue disruption as a result of COVID, sales tax is the first indicator or the first area where you're going to experience disruption. And the city of Cincinnati does not collect sales tax, but they're more heavily reliant on service industries to generate income tax revenues, whereas the village of Gulf Manor is not as reliant on that. So that's a long-winded way of saying we didn't experience the disruption, the worst case disruption this year. I think it's still a possibility that that COVID does impact particularly income tax, and we will monitor it in fiscal year 21, just as we monitored it this year. But I also don't want to hamstring our ability to provide services at the service level that residents want, which is, I think, what this budget appropriations tries to do.
One thing that's interesting to note here is some of the COVID funding that we've received has been able to position us better for 2021 and some of the material needs that we had for the 2021 budget. So we're actually going into next year with less of a need for things. So as long as we're watching the staffing issues and also some of the consumable types of things that we expend on a yearly basis, we should be able to continue excellent expense control throughout next year.
Thank you.
Yep. Now the fun part is, and why we're all here, is the appropriation segment of the budget. So total general fund appropriations for fiscal year 21 are estimated to be $1.9 million. This figure marks a 4.5% increase in total general fund appropriations when compared to that from fiscal year 20. This figure was formulated based upon the assumption of a 3% merit rate increase for village employees and a 10% increase in employee health insurance expenses, as well as the strategic restructuring of certain village positions, one of which Ron spoke to previously. As in previous years, the department receiving the largest share of village appropriations is the police department. The village's police department is set to receive $1,039,000, which constitutes 52% of total general fund appropriations. In total dollars, the department's increase in appropriations for fiscal year 21 is a nearly $38,000 increase. The increase in police department appropriations is the result of increasing personnel expenses almost entirely. Yet, despite the increase in total dollars, the percentage of general fund appropriations scheduled for the police department in fiscal year 21 is identical to that from fiscal year 20, 52% to 52%. Other village departments set to receive increased appropriations in fiscal year 21 include the Mayor and Administrative Offices Department in the amount of $29,000 and the Clerk Treasurer Department. The increase in appropriations for the Mayor and Administrative Offices Department is due primarily to the addition of a permanent part-time property maintenance position, as Ron mentioned earlier. As for the increase in the Clerk Treasurer Department, the increase is in large part due to increased costs associated with tax collection fees levied upon the village by the county. So the amount of collection fees we pay to the county is tied to the level of property taxes we receive. So as those go up, so too do the fees associated with collecting those taxes to the county. Total appropriations for the police levy, Fund 2903 for fiscal year 21 are $241,000. This figure marks a $13,000 decrease in appropriations when compared to that from fiscal year 20. The reason for the reduction in appropriations in fiscal year 21 to this fund is due to the paying off of several village police vehicles this year. So I believe we paid off 2 police vehicles in fiscal year 20. These are no longer an expense to the police levy. And it will give us an opportunity to grow that reserve as well. Appropriations for the street levy, Fund 2904, remain unchanged from previous years, and they're set at the $300,000 annual spend figure. That's a summary of the appropriations. Does any member of council have any questions about that?
I have a brief, not so much a question, but maybe a thought. With the 2021 strategy of this part-time position for the code enforcement from Hamilton County Block Grant, are we increasing the police salary appropriation due to half of our current code enforcement officer salary not being covered by that block grant anymore?
How the budget works is that her hours, the number of hours for policing is always the same in the police department. The reimbursement for her time doing property maintenance is paid from a separate fund.
Perfect. Just want to make sure. Just a thought from discussion.
One, again, a long view question. I know that Ron mentioned probably 2 years ago that there's now in place a long-term street repair and maintenance plan that was implemented. Is that street appropriation number ever going to go down? Because I know we've really recovered a lot. Ron's done a great job recovering all of our streets the last 5 years or so. Or is it pretty much going to stay in that realm as far as we know it? I'm just curious.
I think it's going to stay at the $300,000 level because beginning January 2021, we're going to start making payments on the Stover Street project. We also are going, depending on when the next street project's completed, which could be in 2021, we will have to start making payments on that street project as well. And then we have additional projects being lined up for 2022 and 2023. The $300,000 spent is to give us flexibility. In previous years, it was to give us flexibility to do things like street and sidewalk replacement, like we did this year. Where's that revenue going to come from on the front end to do those projects? So I envision it being that $300,000 for the foreseeable future. It could even be more if we decide to pay one of, if not all, those street projects off ahead of time.
So in a sense, we're already in a maintenance mode.
Yep.
With our streets, and it's going to continue, and they'll wear out in their own times, and we'll have funds available. That's fair. It just seems like we've come a long way the last few years improving. I didn't know if that was a recovery mode where we're spending, a few $100,000 more over the last few years that we may not have to on an ongoing basis. So thank you.
All right, Mr. Lancer, any more of your report?
Yes. Real quick, we're forecasting, so that the last part of the appropriations budget is what are we going to carry into 2022. We're forecasting that general fund revenues will exceed appropriations in the amount of $32,000 at this time. This balance will be added to the carryover to begin the new year in 2022, bringing that level to $606,000. Again, that number isn't solidified because the carryover to begin this year hasn't been accurately added in yet. So that number is going to grow exponentially as well, assuming we don't spend more than we bring in next year, which we haven't yet. And it's my goal not to do that. So that's the end of my appropriation budget report. And I hope council will consider it and give it a vote tonight for approval. A few other things while I have you here. Pull it up. There are no, we are not requesting, hold on one second. We're not requesting any reappropriations or supplemental appropriations during this meeting. However, village administration, I just want to make you all aware, village administration has requested that the police department conduct a thorough benefit and cost analysis of their operations. COVID-19 has resulted in several challenges from municipalities across the state, and in particular, first responders such as police departments, and in particular, smaller police departments like ours. Among the challenges experienced by Gulf Manor police in this area relates to the use of vacation time among officers. Several village officers have vacation benefit time that exceeds the allowed carryover threshold of 120 hours. Now, the stated reason for this cause was due to a need to ensure adequate coverage of the village when creating the biweekly schedule. And as a result, several officers had their scheduled vacations rescinded or not approved to meet this challenge. We, as in village administration, is requesting that the police department submit a recommendation or multiple recommendations that is reasonable to both the affected officers as well as village resources. The leadership of the police department will submit the recommendation and any associated financial impacts to village administration, hopefully next week, to ensure sufficient time for us and administration to plan for the end of the year supplemental appropriations. So long story short, one of the reasons why we couldn't move forward tonight with reappropriations and we had to push it to the next council meeting is to give them adequate time to do that financial analysis and come up with some recommendations for us to review and you to approve relating to any potential increased costs at the end of the year for the village. I don't know, Terry, did you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, we talked with the chief today about putting together that report so we can make a good choice relative, again, as Andy said, for the benefit of our employees as well as to properly manage our budget through year end. So we are going to need to meet that one time in December just to do that supplemental year end closeout, and hope to have that report in plenty of time for everybody to take a look at it and know what direction we want to go for that closeout.
That's the end of my report. If anyone has any questions, again, I'm happy to answer them.
So one thing to note here is we'll be asking for a finance committee meeting, most likely at 6:30 p.m. on December 14th, and then a council meeting at 7 o'clock. The only business will be end of year appropriations and then council approving that.
Thank you, Mr. Lanzer. We are, by my estimation, running a bit longer than we usually are at this point. So I'm going to ask for the second call for quorum now before I ask for Chief Campbell's report.
Mr. Badger,
Here.
Ms. Cheney,
Here.
Mr. Pridnoff,
Present.
Ms. Snyder,
Here.
Mr. Van Horn,
Present.
all members present.
Thank you. Chief Campbell.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. Mr. Mayor, you previously requested a more detailed report, and I also spoke with members of council about providing more detailed reports on the nature of runs we respond to. At this time, I'm going to report that with the clerical part of our police department being out of the office, that impacted our ability to get that prepared to the amount of detail and redaction I would like. With that being said, I'll give the general numbers, and we will work on getting that process finalized for the future meetings. In the month of October, the police department responded to 246 calls for service. They took 19 criminal offense incident reports. And as I said, going forward, because there's so much redaction to do, some of the incidents that may be reported or commented on could be considered still open. So we have to be sure that we're able to check those to make sure we're not reporting details of things that are still under investigation. And like I said, we'll have that for you going forward. That is all I have for tonight, other than I am thankful to report that our clerical portion of the PD is returning back to work healthy tomorrow.
Good news. Thank you, Chief Campbell. Do I have a motion to do we need a motion to accept police report? No, because it's not the mayor's court report. Correct. Okay. With that then, our solicitor, Mr. Donnellan, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you. We have a couple pieces of legislation this evening to follow up with Mr. Lanzer's report. The first item on the agenda is ordinance number 2020-12. This formally adopts our budget for calendar year 2021. So we have the ability to continue to spend money consistent with the budget which he outlined. So I'd like a motion to read that by title only.
So motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Objection, I take that as unanimous.
And this is ordinance 2020-12, an ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the Village of Gulf Manor during the fiscal year ending December 31, 2021. And we need a motion to approve, a second, discussion, and a roll call vote.
Motion to approve.
Oh, second.
Is there any more? I know Mr. Lanzer covered it in detail. There were some questions asked. Is there any more question or discussion, or should we move to a vote?
Looks like we're ready for a vote. Mr. Lanzer.
Mr. Badger,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Pridnoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
And this takes effect immediately upon adoption. Since it's an appropriation ordinance, there's not a 30-day delay. But I do need a motion, a second, and a roll call vote to suspend the second and third readings that will go into effect January 1.
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call vote.
Mr. Badger,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Pridnoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-12 passes.
Thank you. The second ordinance we had listed on the agenda, ordinance 2020-13, is what we talked about being the year-end cleanup appropriations. Since it was on the agenda, I'd like a motion to table that to December 14th.
Motion to table to December 14th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And so that ordinance number 2020-13 will be the only legislative item on the agenda for December 14th. Under resolutions, we have resolution number 2020-19. This is renewing our electric aggregation program with Dynasty Electric Supply. Mr. Herford and Mr. Lanza have been working with them over the last several months. We've been under contract with them, I think, at least 2 years, if not longer. And the projections they're giving to us are very competitive to renew that contract and extend it. I don't know if Mr. Lanza or Mr. Herf want to add anything additional to this, but we are recommending we extend that contract.
So one of the most important facets of this renewal is that this is now clean energy, sustainable energy for our electric, which we intend to continue with this program going forward. I don't have the numbers, but those are posted on our website and are better than what Duke Energy is offering.
I had previously asked, my understanding is that it's not available, that we're still working on it. I'm wondering if we can ask them specifically to provide it rather than us coming up with a apples to apples comparison for our residents. I know it's not directly related to this legislation, but in terms of giving our residents that option of a more informed decision about who they're going with energy wise.
I actually have an update for you offline. That happened during the whole COVID thing. So,
All right, thank you, Mr. Herf.
So then I have a motion to read this by title only.
So moved.
Motion to read by title only.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And this is resolution number 2020-19, a resolution to authorize the village administrator to execute an agreement on behalf of the village of Gulf Manor, Hamilton County, Ohio, with Dynasty Energy Services for electrical supply to the village of Gulf Manor electric aggregation program. I need a motion, a second, and then a roll call vote.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Lanzer?
Any other questions or comments, or go to vote?
Okay, Mr. Betcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Pridnoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Passes.
The last piece of legislation is resolution number 2020-20. What this does is designate the Hamilton County Department of Administrative Services as our internet auction provider for disposal of surplus goods. We're required by statute, if we want to use internet auction services, to designate a provider. From time to time, we've used gov deals. I think we've seen some success in the last year plus with Hamilton County. So we're asking this contract with Hamilton County to be extended, and that would be through the website hamiltoncounty.ohioauction.com. I think from time to time, Mr. Van Harden asked if we could put a note on our webpage to let people know that that auction site is available, particularly if we post something in particular. If we're in dispose of a large piece of equipment, just to let people know. Other than that, it's periodically just cleaning up the basement and getting rid of surplus goods and no longer needed materials. So do we have a motion to read this by title only?
So motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Take that unanimous.
And this is resolution number 2020-20, a lot of 20s there. A resolution authorizing a contract with the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County, Ohio for internet surplus auction services. I need a motion, a second, questions and discussion, and then a vote.
Make a motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Just curious, is there anything that's you anticipate now, you know, you're going to put up for auction, or is it just formality right now? I'm just curious.
It's more formality to always have that outlet in place, and then periodically The administration will get a list of things that are determined to be surplus, and then we will move those forward to the auction site. And they're up for a period of time, after which they're sold. And then the county keeps, I think, a 20% fee, and I think 80% is returned to us. It's detailed in the contract, which is attached.
Okay, thank you.
So right now you can get a good deal on the chairs from Chambers. They're being sold as a lot. And then also the old lectern is for sale.
And those would be considered legacy items. People would want to maintain them for their basement because of the long history they've had in council chambers. And some history on those chairs. They came from a shoe store that closed out. So if you would like to reenact a shoe store in your basement, maybe get one of those little things where you can measure feet, you could have a full outfit then in your basement.
Very nice.
Roll call vote then.
Mr. Betcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Pridnoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Passes.
And then just following up on the mayor's report, the Senate last week in the lame duck session did approve extending the virtual meetings until July of next year. That needs to be reconciled with the General Assembly, the House. They expect that to be done in the next week, the governor to sign it. So the ability to meet remotely like this will continue past December 1 into next July. No changes to the method. Still posting in advance, giving people an opportunity to participate. It could be like we do a Zoom, it could be a telephone conference call in, or it could be a combination of the two. So we'll get that out to Mr. Hurth so he knows that we can continue to have these Brady Bunch meetings well into next year. And then just the last item, during this unusual time of year, have a happy Thanksgiving and celebrate in any way you possibly can. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Donnellan. Executive Committee Chair, Ms. Snyder, do you have a report?
No report tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Education, Ms. Cheney, do you have a report?
Yes, a short one. You probably all know anyway that the CPS schools today went to distance learning again. It's 5 days a week. On November 13th, Ms. Simpson of PRM sent a letter home to all the parents, letting them know this. And it's effective until January 4th. The last I knew, the elementary kids were possibly going to go back December 4th, but now it depends on how red we are and how we're doing in Hamilton County. So that's up in the air. I can tell you that the school board is meeting tonight, so something might come out of that meeting tonight. The reason that Ms. Simpson says that they're going back to distance learning is mainly because of staffing issues due to the increase in COVID. And the clubs, if you're interested, will be held virtually, but the athletics and the band will be in person. Now, I don't know if that's changed since her letter or not. I didn't see anything on the PRM site today. The school office is open 2 days a week, Wednesday and Thursday, 7:30 to 2, if anybody needs to go there. Central office is open to the public every day, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Cheney. Any questions from anyone? And if not, nonprofit report, Mr. Pridnoff, anything? No?
No report.
Mr. Van Horn and Mr. Lanzer, Fire District Board member report. Anything?
The next Little Miami Fire District Board virtual meeting will be Wednesday, December 16th, 2020 at 6 p.m. And it'll be online.
Thank you, Mr. Lanzer.
Can I note, Mr. Mayor, can I note real quick, in your council packet, we're posting the board packet along with the link to observe or participate in the Little Miami meeting. So just so you're aware of that. Thank you.
Real quick, the talk of Gulf Manor's future inside the district has come to the forefront, especially at the last meeting. So if any residents is viewing this tonight, please, I request that you reach out and go through the board meetings from here on out for more information.
Thank you, Ian. I was going to mention that you were in the middle of some questions, and might be good for people to watch that. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Lanzer. Mr. Betcher, Planning Commission.
No report, and I believe Mr. Hirth did send out a cancellation notice for Monday, December 7th, because we won't have any business. So possibly next Planning Commission meeting will be January 4th, 2021.
Great, thank you. And Finance Committee, Mr. Betcher.
So, if I may, the little libraries didn't come up. Is that going to be on the January?
Well, what we'll probably do in January is have our organization meeting and set some of the agenda items for the year. That's kind of been put on hold with the COVID, as well as the fact we've had no other business to draw Planning Commission out right now into these COVID meetings. So we probably will go forward in January to organize, and at that time set the agenda, and getting into the springtime, we can look at where that may be appropriate to have on the agenda then.
All right.
We may have to have a discussion that's a little different than what I did a lot of work to get ready for this next, the next meeting schedule to get those on the agenda. So, okay, we'll deal with that. Thank you.
Mr. Betcher, Finance Report.
I would say Mr. Lanzer covered the majority of the Finance Committee meeting we did meet today. Just one topic is just planned performance merit increases are going to start in January. So employees who are on the performance review system will be seeing raises, which is good news for our employees. Other than that, I think Mr. Lanzer covered the majority of everything from finance in his report. So thanks for making it easy for me.
All right. I have a couple comments prior to seeing if there's any other announcements. One of them is that I failed to mention in my report when I mentioned the CARES Act funding for our residents who are having trouble with need assistance with rent or mortgage or utilities. The way that works is it's funding, I believe it's up to $5,000 for things that have not been paid. So it's so like really if you're up to date now, but you're worried about December, it's best to apply on December 1st. All right. If you applied prior to your rent being due, you're going to be denied. I wanted to give that significant detail in there, and so that our council members, for folks that you may know that need to take advantage of this assistance, spread the word about that. It'll save a lot of frustration from folks to let them know that December 1st would be the best time to be applying if folks are up to date now. If they're not up to date, even December 1st would be good, because like I said, up to $5,000, they can be applying for assistance for a previous month's rent, as well as moving forward into December. And that application that lets people know what the supporting documents are that they need to provide is on our website. It's in my report, which will be up online soon. And then it also has the email address of where you send that completed application and supporting documents to. And my understanding is that they can respond pretty quickly to at least let you know that they're looking at your materials. They usually do that within 24 to 48 hours. All right. Is there any other Announcements.
Police department has an announcement. Looking at my calendar, I neglected to inform council. Since our next meeting isn't until the 14th, on December 12th, Gulf Manor Police Department is going to participate in Shop with a Cop, specifically Shop with a Canine Cop. We're going to have 10 families that were suggested to us by Pleasant Ridge Montessori. Take the kids with canine officers and the canines, as well as any other officers that want to help wrangle the dogs and the children. And we're going to participate in that event. It'll be a really good event. Lieutenant Forrest and Sergeant Reed have worked really hard getting that put together, and it's almost December already. So it's going to occur on the 12th. And on the 14th, I should hopefully have a report for you on its success. That is all.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Sounds great. Any other announcements? All right. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your service. Have a great evening.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Good.